We are ready to proceed, Mayor Patterson.
Thank you, Vicki. Okay, it is 7 o'clock. I call this meeting to order. Welcome to our regular council meeting for Monday, August 9th. Let's begin with the roll call. Mr. Teixeira, please.
Mayor Patterson.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Here.
Councillor Dickert.
Here.
Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Present.
Councillor Fleet.
Present.
Councillor Hockey.
Present.
And Councillor Cable.
Present.
Thank you. Good evening, council, staff, guests, the viewing public, and the media. Council, does anyone have a disclosure of pecuniary interest? I do not see any, and of course, if one should arise during the meeting, you may declare it then. Item 3 on the agenda is additions or deletions. We do not have any this evening. Item 4 is our health and safety message brought to us by Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. Online fraud and phishing. Phishing is the act of sending an email message in the attempt to scam money from the recipient. The email address appears to be from the legitimate companies or even people you know. They're designed to lure readers into clicking a link or button contained in the email. Protect yourself or your personal information. Do not click on any link in the message or reply to the email. Do not call or phone the number listed within the email. Do not download any attachment from the email. Do not send payment in any form, whether through credit card, check, e-transfer, gift cards. Do not provide your full name, passwords, credit, debit card numbers, PIN numbers, or bank account numbers. Legitimate companies will not ask for this information by email or phone. A lot of great information, a lot of great tips. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. I agree. We seem to be receiving a lot of these phishing emails and scammers, I call them. And it's so easy to click on those without thinking. So you just got to slow down a little bit and hover over that email address to see if they're a legitimate email or not. All right, thank you. So item 5 is we have a public meeting under the Planning Act this evening, and we are considering zoning bylaw amendment number 3169-21. This is file number Z321 425 Hanover Incorporated, care of Daniel Cheatley. I'll ask the clerk for the method of the notice of the meeting and the dates of that notice.
The public meeting was advertised in the Post and mailed to all commenting agencies on July 15, 2021, in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act. The application was reviewed by the Planning Advisory Committee on June 15th for zoning bylaw compliance. Comments were received from Grey County Planning and Development Department and Ron Cooper, Director of Public Works. And Your Worship, there are also other comments that have been received today that Mr. Tedford will highlight in a bit.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tedford is our Director of Building and Development. He will give us an overview of the amendment application. Don?
Thank you, Your Worship. The PB 1621 is a report with regards to amending our zoning bylaw. It was on June the 9th, 2021, that Daniel Cheatley of Wren Design .ca, representing 425 Hanover Inc., submitted an application to amend the zoning on lands described as part of Lot 7, Concession 1, south of the Durham Road, and known as 434 18th Avenue in the town of Hanover, County of Grey. The zoning bylaw amendment proposes to rezone the land subject to construct a 21-unit apartment building. On June 15th, 2021, Mr. Cheatley made a presentation. A concept plan is attached to show that what he presented with the Planning Advisory Committee. It describes the proposed 3-story 21-unit apartment building, including covered parking on the first floor. to be located at 434 18th Avenue. The property is currently zoned C2, corridor commercial, and permits multiple residential uses that exceed more than 9 units and is developed in accordance with the residential type 5 regulations. Being that the plan required numerous regulations for the residential type 5 zone, lot area, frontage, rear yard, north side yard, coverage, and parking, it was PAC's recommendation to proceed with a site-specific bylaw amendment for the proposed building. PAC was also, PAC reviewed the zoning bylaw amendment application at their June 15th meeting and recommended that zoning bylaw amendment Z321 proceed to tonight's public meeting. Attached are comments received relating to this application, and there may be further, but there were back I get too many papers, Madam Chair. But we did get comments which are attached to the send out to the council package from the County of Gray Planning and Development. And the county staff have reviewed the subject application and generally have no comments or concerns. Staff are encouraged to see additional rental units being proposed. The subject development may qualify for additional conditional exemptions of the county's development charges. Staff recommend the proponent review the information on the following website. They give the county website with regards to development charges. And connection with either the director of finance or the director of planning and further planning for further details. The applicant may also choose to review the county's healthy development guidelines. The county put these together a few years back, and they're quite interesting to follow and look at with regard to development proposals, and lets them look at all the different considerations regarding planning. Consideration should be given to accommodations active transportation, which is bicycles on site, along with provisions for shade and various landscaping elements. County Transportation Services has no comments, and they would like to receive a copy of the decision. The next few pages reviews their development planning criteria. And another comment there was received from Mr. Cooper, our Director of Public Works. The property is currently served with a 19mm water service and 100mm sanitary service to the property line of the current vacant lot. Any additional water, sanitary, or storm sewer services requirements or alterations to the current municipal infrastructure would be at the expense of the proponent. They are aware of that. The additional comments received were from neighboring properties. The first one was from Tim Nolan at 424 18th Avenue, which is the property abutting to the south on the same side of the road on 18th Avenue. I wish to object to the rezoning of the above noted property. I am the owner of the neighboring property at 424 18th Ave. I feel that allowing the change of the lot lines would have served damaging effects to my property and my long-term tenants. All properties have spent numerous resources in creating a well-balanced and business and residential home that would be affected. The extra noise, loss of privacy, security, and visibility of the business. Since owning this property, the town of Hanover already changed the bylaw of the property south of us, which sincerely took the privacy away and created a driveway access issue as well as a water flooding issue, as my building was built as a slab on grade, all without notice to me in advance. This was even after I had extensive meetings with the town before purchasing the property. Further to this, last year when I was building an LED sign to help make the building more noticeable, as the new triplex has now made the building not so visible from the south, I was denied the ability to build it on the road allowance setback. Granting the ability to build closer to my property or closer to the road allowance would further make my building less visible from the roadway. The town of Hanover needs to support their small businesses. A 3-story apartment building built closer to my lot line would take the privacy from my residential rental house, as they would peer into the backyard, side deck, and the 2 bedrooms. Sincerely, Tim Nolan. The second one is from Summer Nichols at 424 18th Ave. She indicates that the proposed bylaw amendment for 434 18th Avenue. I wish to object to the rezoning of the above noted property. I am the renter of the neighboring property at 424 18th Ave. I feel that allowing the change of the lot line setbacks would largely affect the privacy of my home, not to mention the security of my home, with ability for residential of the 3 stories to peer into my home and backyard. I also have a side deck and 2 bedrooms that would face the new apartment building. A 3-story apartment building built beyond the lines would make this rental housing unlivable. Everyone deserves the right to have privacy and safety in their home. And another one from 424 18th Ave is from Urban Spa Escape, which is the business at that address. It's proposed by zoning bylaw for 434 18th Ave. I wish to object to the rezoning of the above noted property. I've been renting 424 18th Avenue for over 4 years now for the purpose of a spa and have a long-standing lease. I do not agree with the change in the bylaw as we have invested much energy and finances into design and quiet and peaceful space for all of the Hanover and area residents to come and relax. It is bad enough that the bylaw was changed without notice for the 4-plex that was built pretty much on top of us. We had a beautiful and peaceful view of our clients to look out. And now we have had to put frost film on our windows to avoid seeing men standing in their underwear at their patio doors, staring at our lady clients. This was unacceptable on the south side of us, but happened to us without notice. I am strongly against it happening to us on the north side, as the backyard of our spa is soon to be relaxing space for our clients to relax outdoors before and after their appointments, with hammocks and lounges. Having a 3-story apartment unit hanging above would be severely damaging to our reputation and spa atmosphere. Our community members all work very hard, and they deserve the ability to completely escape and find peaceful place to relax. Sincerely, Urban Spa Escape. We then got a copy from Dan Cheatley. He's the a planner type architect for the project, representing the owner. He sent his regrets. He was scheduled, but he ended up with another meeting, and he's going to try and come on, I guess, before our public meeting gets over. But if it doesn't, council will have to make the decision on their own. But anyways, he did want to send this to me in writing, because they designed their site with the residential and the commercial use beside them and with them in mind. And he wanted to make sure that he was designing it to satisfy those property owners. It's addressed to Don and Brenda. Thank you for providing the letters of objection from the owner and tenant at 424 18th Ave. Upon review of the objections, I noticed that all three letters share the same concern of privacy infringement and the proposed building setbacks disrupting the livability of the property at 424 18th Ave and the operation of the tenant business urban spa escape. To those in objection to our proposal, I would like to assure that due consideration have been taken in the preliminary design stages of this development to mitigate impacts to the privacy of the property located at 424 18th Ave. These design considerations will be maintained and improved as the development progresses towards construction. In fact, the proposed side yard setback variance of 2.4 meters on the north side of the property line was requested in order to propose the apartment building to be positioned on the property at 434, further away from the residential and the adjacent property urban spa escape at 424 18th Ave. This single gesture greatly reduces the impact of our proposed development on the neighboring property and its residential commercial component. During the site plan development stage, further mitigation measures or strategies will be implemented to reduce the impact of the privacy of 424 18th Ave. Further to mitigation strategies will include, but will not be limited to, privacy fencing at the south property line of 434 proposed development, as well as a 2.5 meter tall landscape buffer planting strip at the south property line along 434. We will endeavor to provide a development that can integrate with and enhance the surrounding properties while providing the much needed quality housing option. It is our hope that this development will also be beneficial for the surrounding small businesses and the town of Hanover together. Sincerely, Daniel Cheatley. Those are all the comments received. I don't know if there's anybody else online or anything who want to object, but Planning Advisory Committee did recommend that there, if you look at the minutes, which are 9.4 on your agenda, if you look under 4, which is the comments, further comments on 434, the request to look at the height of 1.5 meters because of the topography of the land and the requirements for having fire access with the truck. The slope could not be over a certain percentage, and they were having to do that. They could not do it without raising the building up, and that's why we see a minor adjustment being requested for the height. But after the planning committee reviewed those, they did make a motion and recommendation to council that the bylaw, if passed, proceed to the public meeting with the site-specific increase in height and the reduced parking. The parking, they wanted to go from 1.5 per unit down to 1.3. It's a matter of 3 parking spaces. It's not a lot. And then the committee felt that, and further, that the notice of passing of the bylaw also be circulated the same as the notice of public meeting. Therefore, they're getting double notice with regards to, so that those minutes do reflect, if council so passes those minutes, it'll show that staff will increase the circulation. There is no financial implications tied to this report. The report represents economic development, community. It also has environment and sustainable municipals also there. So it's a project. The site plan has been revised to show that the slope has been taken out. The parking's been moved to the front of the parking lot so that it's adjacent to their spa's parking near the road. There's also, I went down and looked at it today, and I knew there's a huge tree, probably 3 or 4 feet in diameter, that's actually blocking the spa sign more than anything else. I don't see the spa sign being blocked by the building to the south or the proposed building to the north. It's the tree that's there. It's blocking the visual of that. So I'd imagine that's something that could become part of the site development agreement as future discussions. If there's any questions, Your Worship, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Thanks, Don. So members of the public will now be allowed to speak. Vicky, do we have anyone that would that is on the Zoom call that would like to speak? I don't see any extra participants.
No, I have no one that has raised their hand to speak. I have one attendee, but they have not raised their hand to address. Oh,
Okay. Thanks, Vicky.
just one moment. They
are asking to speak. Okay.
nope, they have not.
All right. I was just going to say, please state your name and address for the record. So, all right. The public portion of the meeting is now closed and discussion or debate is limited to council and staff. So that moves us on to item 5.1, and we have report PB 16-21, which is the public meeting for the zoning bylaw amendment. So I'll take a mover and seconder before we open it up for discussion. Councillor Cable and Councillor Dickert. All right, council questions, and Mr. Tedford will try and answer them. Dawn, I would like to ask the comment about a sign on the road allowance. We don't allow that anywhere, right?
Nowhere in town do we allow a sign on the town road allowance. They can come right out to the property line, which is very generous for our zoning bylaw and our sign bylaw. And you can actually overhang the property line 10 feet in the air. We do allow the sign to be 20 inches further into the airspace above the road allowance, but it has to be 10 feet clearance underneath. So our sign bylaw is very liberal when it comes to regards to placement of signs in the commercial zones.
Okay, thank you. Council, questions? Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship. Don, were there any comments received from the property owner to the north? I noticed that it's kind of only 2.4 meters between the building and I guess what will be Tender Pizza. Are there any comments from the building owner of that property?
No, there is not. If you look at the sketch again, the 2.4 meters is not for the whole length of the building. Because the back half of the building is actually sitting back something like 6.16 meters. It's a very small portion of it sits at 8 feet. And there's also the Tender Pizza building is back over 3 meters as well. So you're looking at quite a distance between the two buildings.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was hoping that council might consider deferring this decision. As we're aware, we were in a meeting at 5:45 when multiple comments were received and I didn't have a chance to review them. And I know Don read them out, but I haven't had a chance to give them due consideration, and I'd like to do that. I wonder if we would consider that.
Council, do you feel there'd be further benefit to deferring? Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just wondering what impact this will have on the project. Don, do you have any idea if a delay would have any impact on the project?
The bylaw could come back again on September 20th, would be the next regular council meeting. I did have that discussion with Mr. Daniel Cheatley, and they may even have some more details of their design as they're trying to. Many planners nowadays like to get approvals done so they don't have to spend all the money on the next bunch of steps without having some assurances. But it would slow it down to that length of time for them to get the assurance that they're looking for. But I don't see, yeah, those comments come in pretty late and I got them out as quick as I could, but I have no qualms with it being deferred so that we can give them a fair due diligence and look at them in a fair manner. I do believe that they can be resolved, but and there is the site development stage that we have to go through, but it'd be September 20th and see the bylaw come back to council.
Thank you.
Your worship, if I might.
Yes.
I'm gathering that the other benefit might be that it would give an opportunity to the planner to actually attend. I understand the planner wasn't able to attend this evening, but perhaps the planner would be able to bring back some additional information in light of the issues that have been raised this evening, and perhaps there are other issues that they would bring if they were present.
Thank you.
If it doesn't have on the project itself, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't, allow a little bit of a delay so that we can, properly consider and hear from the planner.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. Don, the tree that's blocking the sign, what property it's on? Is it on the urban spa property or the developer's property?
Can you repeat that?
The tree that you're saying that there's a tree that's blocking the signage?
That's correct.
And whose property, whose tree is it? Is it on?
It's on the southeast corner of the proponent's property here.
Okay.
But I think everybody shares a little bit of it, a tiny bit on the road and a tiny bit on urban spa as well. But the 90% of it is on the property that wants to develop. And they're showing a driveway right there as well. So maybe it would be a benefit to everybody. Other than the proponent loves trees. He was saying they really like that tree. And I said, well, your site plan doesn't show it. But anyways, something else that can be discussed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Councillor Dickert.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wondered, Don, are any of these considered affordable units in this development?
Yeah, this was the one unit that did come and talk to us a while ago and said they want to keep their units within I think it's our region affordable rate. They didn't talk about getting into the social low income categories, but they want to keep the rents reasonable and within the rate that CMHC has for our area. They did mention that.
Thank you.
Okay. So I would gather that Councillor Fitzsimmons, you would make the motion to defer.
I would.
Okay. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Fleet. All in favor? That is carried. It is deferred. That was good discussion. Thank you. Item 6 is delegations, and we have with us this evening Mr. Barry Heaney. He is with BDO Canada LLP, and he is going to give us a review of the Town of Hanover audited financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2020. And I'd like a mover and seconder before Mr. Heaney starts his presentation. Councillor Fitzsimmons and Councillor Hawking. Okay, Barry, all yours.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. So I will share my screen to bring that up. That should be up now, I believe.
It is.
Okay. So these are the draft financial statements for the Town of Hanover, as mentioned, as at December 31st, 2020. Once approved, they will remain in this form and the draft watermark will be removed. I'll start. I'm just going to do a high-level overview of these financial statements. We're going to start on page 4 as seen on the screen. This is the, the independent auditor's report. This is the part of the financial statements that are BDO's report. We report on these financial statements. The rest of the financial statements are the towns. There's the town's numbers that they compile, and we have to audit and comment on those. The top part of our report is the opinion. So we have audited the consolidated financial statements of the town. And as at December 31st, 2020, it includes the statement of operations, consolidated statement of changes in net financial assets, and consolidated cash flows for the year then ended. In our opinion, the accompanying consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the consolidated financial position of the municipality as at December 31st, 2020, in accordance with the Canadian Public Sector Accounting Standards, which is the standards used for municipalities. So this is a clean audit report. The basis for our opinion is we conduct an audit in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards. Again, just the highlights, I'll jump to the next paragraph. Responsibilities of management and those charged with governance. Management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of these consolidated financial statements in accordance with Canadian Public Sector Accounting Standards. I will jump to the next page, auditor's responsibility. Our objective is to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the consolidated financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, and to issue this auditor's report, which includes our opinion. Those are the highlights of the audit report. I'll jump to the consolidated statement of financial position. It's similar to a balance sheet for a for-profit organization. It's a snapshot as of December 31st, 2020 with comparatives for the prior year. And it's broken down, as you can see, by the headings as financial assets. It lists the liabilities, net financial assets, other non-financial assets, and then shows the accumulated surplus. Financial assets, you'll see what's included in those. In total, they're $19 million, whereas prior year they were $16.67 million. That's an increase of $2,350,000. The main variances from prior year is there's an extra $1.7 million worth of cash. Some of that is deferred funding that came in that has not been spent because of some, with COVID being last year, some little less activity in the transit sector. And there's also another $526,000 invested in portfolio investments. Liabilities, they total 5.6 million versus just under 5 million last year. So that's an increase of $634,000. The main increases being payables with some timing difference of projects being done are up $276,000. And deferred revenue, as mentioned, is up $428,000. So again, that's money received, and then just with some delays in some of the funding being spent on with decrease in activity due to COVID. Net financial assets, when you net the two together, you deduct the liabilities from the financial assets and get net financial assets of $13.4 million. So that's an increase of $1.7 million from prior year. Non-financial assets are mostly made up of tangible capital assets. So this is the investment the town has in tangible capital assets. There's a further breakdown in the notes on these, but there's just under $71.6 million worth of tangible capital assets at net book value. So that is up 1.4 million from prior year. The increase is a $3.6 million worth of capital asset additions in the year, minus $2.17 million worth of amortization. Amortization is an accounting entry that depreciates the assets over their useful life. So overall, an additional $1.4 million of investment in the town's assets over and above what they've depreciated in the year. So in total, these all net, when you add these all together, the net financial assets and the non-financial assets, we have $87.2 million of accumulated surplus. which is a $3 million increase from prior year. The next page shows the consolidated statement of operations. It's similar to an income statement. You'll see that the first column is the budget. Then the highlighted column is the actual results for 2020. And the far right column is the prior year. Again, I will just highlight some variances. So taxation revenue of 7.1 million is almost bang on to budget, and a $250,000 increase of about 3.6%. Government transfers are down. There was some, just with COVID, some variances in OLG funding being down, some COVID restart funding being up, kind of netted out, and a one-time modernization funding from last year dropping off. So overall, there's an $808,000 decrease. Part of that decrease, part of that decrease was budgeted. So user fees and service charges, they're down $171,000 at 1.988 million, and they're below budget, mostly due to, again, COVID with user fees. The rec user fees are down a lot, but building permits are up, offsetting some of that drop. Investment income is pretty similar. Donations is up. There was a one-time donation in the Youth Activity Center that's consolidated into these statements. And other income doesn't have, did not change much. It's mostly rent and interest. In total, revenues are $19.2 million, down $499,000 from prior year, and down $302,000 from, $302,000 above budget. Expenses, general government expenses are up $361,000. They're above budget. Again, there's some extra COVID expenses in here this year that was not budgeted for. Protection services are up $156,000, or about 4%. Transportation services are pretty flat. Transit is down, and that's mostly, again, due to COVID. There was just less activity in Saugeen Mobility. Environmental services were up $260,000. Mostly some extra repairs and one extra position for wages. Health and services are down. It had less repairs than that, so some had some extra, some up, some down. Rec and cultural, as the user fees dropped in the rec and cultural, there's also less activity, so the expenses are down $601,000. So COVID had a big impact on that line. And planning and development is up $67,000. So overall, expenses are $16.178 million, down $32,000, and within $225,000 of budget. So there was some ups and some downs, but they kind of netted out, and there's a real close correlation between the budget and prior year. Overall, the annual surplus is $3 million versus $3.5 million last year, so that's down $467,000, very close to the budget. And that gets added to the opening surplus to get an ending surplus of $87.2 million. I'm going to skip page 9 and go to the statement of cash flows. This starts off with the annual surplus. It adds in non-cash items such as our accounting depreciation on the capital assets, and some changes in accrual numbers, working capital numbers. But in general, about $6 million was generated in revenues over expenses in cash. That was spent $3.6 million on capital activities. $526,000 was invested, and $155,000 was repayment of long-term debt. So in total, that's what makes up the $1.68 million increase in cash, bringing your ending cash to $9,878,000. The next page, the base of accounting is just to highlight that these are consolidated financial statements. So, and they are in accordance with the Public Sector Accounting Board of CPA Canada. So these are the guidelines we have to follow. The consolidated financial statements reflect all the assets, liabilities, revenue, expenses of those boards that are controlled by council, and they are included in the below. So just so you're aware of what's all included in these town financials. There's the police board, the cemetery, the library, the downtown improvement area, community improvement, launch pad. 100% of those are all included in these numbers. Proportionately consolidated in are their share of the Saugeen Mobility, the landfill, and the municipal airport. You'll see the percentages that are consolidated in there. A lot of the notes haven't changed. There's a lot of backup and support to, these are the accounting policies, and some of the numbers. You'll see there's some investments. There's some investments with Stereo. The one note I did want to highlight, though, is just jump to the tangible assets, capital assets. So this is a breakdown of the different categories. So there's land and land improvements, buildings, equipment, vehicles, and infrastructure. You'll see on the far right the $3.6 million worth of additions. And the main additions are, there was some work on the 8th Street. There was a landfill cell 2 purchased, dechlorinization system, a chiller, a plow truck, and some sidewalk work as well. So those are all split amongst all of their all the categories to get the $3.6 million in total. Obviously, there's more than that. Those were just the larger expenditures in the year. From there, I would like to go to the accumulated surplus. This highlights, you know, on the statements, it's a big number. People want to know what makes up that $87.2 million of accumulated surplus that the town has. So there is a general deficit of $52,000 from one of the subcommittees, the airport. Everyone else has more of a balanced surplus or deficit. And what's remaining is $16.6 million set aside for reserves and reserve funds. And that's in note 12, which I'll go over next. Amounts to be recovered are all the liabilities that the town owes. So that takes away $2.7 million. There's an investment in land for resale of $1.8 million. And the bulk obviously is a $71.5 million worth of capital assets that we just went over in the previous note. That's what makes up the town's accumulated surplus of $87.2 million. And here is a listing of the reserve and reserve funds. So again, just highlighting the main variances. We'll go down to waste collection and disposal. So there was a large capital asset addition in the landfill this year. So there was $305,000 taken out of reserves for that. Other capital purposes with the surplus part of that was put into this reserve, $883,000. There's also some money that was put into the water and wastewater reserves, and part of the wastewater is going to be is anticipated to be spent in the 2021 year. So those reserves were increased as well. So overall, just under $1.4 million was set aside in reserves for future funding, future spending, or projects. And the rest of the notes really provide some backup. It's just a real high level overview I'm doing tonight. So I just wanted to say I'm available for any questions. And I did want to thank everyone, including Chris and Jen and Brian, for their commitment to the audit process. It was, we met with council before, and it is a clean audit opinion that we're issuing. So a lot of work goes into that. So I just want to thank the staff for that. And if anyone has any questions, I'm available now.
Okay, thank you, Barry. Council, I know we did review this in detail earlier, and just wondering if anyone had any other questions come to mind. And I don't see any. So Barry, I want to say thank you. Very clear and easy to follow. Thank you for that review. It's always good to see the numbers at the end of the year, how we're doing.
Okay,
so,
thank you.
So it's been moved by Councillor Fitzsimmons and seconded by Councillor Hocking that the Council of the Town of Hanover approves the Corporation of the Town of Hanover financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2020, as audited and presented by the Municipal Auditors BDO Canada LLP Chartered Accountants, licensed public accountants. And Barry, if you'll stop sharing your screen, I will ask council if they're all in favor. That is carried. So thanks again, Barry. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, moving on. Item 7 is council and committee of the whole minutes. And the first one, 7.1, is our regular council meeting minutes. This was from July the 12th. I need a mover and seconder just before I highlight those. Councillor Cable and Deputy Mayor Hicks. You'll remember that evening we had Paul Wagner here with United Way, and he talked about the issues that affect food security in Grey and Bruce counties. That was a good information session. We also awarded the contract for the supply and installation of the audio-visual equipment that will be going into the council chambers. And we adopted the official plan amendment file LOPA number 3, and it has been forwarded to Grey County for approval. And we had the Build Back Better assistance strategy, which is to assist eligible user groups with subsidized rental rates for 3 operating seasons. So I'll call the question. All in favor of those minutes? That's carried. Thank you. Item 7.2 is special council meeting minutes from July 21st. I need a mover and seconder. Councillor Dickert and Councillor Fitzsimmons. And that was a closed meeting session, so I will call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item 8 is staff reports, and the first one, 8.1, is CAO 12-21. Appointments to the Town of Hanover Economic Development Committee. It's from Brian Teixeira, our CAO clerk, and I need a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Hocking and Councillor Fleet. Brian?
Your worship, section 16.1 of bylaw number 294316, which is our procedural bylaw, states that all council appointments to various boards, commissions, special bodies, and other statutory positions shall be made at the required time of resolution of council. So there's been 2 resignations from the Town's Economic Development Committee. And as a result, advertisements were placed in the July 1st edition of the Post, as well as on the municipality's website. 2 applications were received by the July 16th deadline. Mayor Patterson has reviewed the applications and is recommending that Tammy Lothar and Jason Radstake be appointed to the Economic Development Committee for the remainder of the current term of council. There are no financial implications associated with this report. And with respect to the strategic plan, it checks off strategic direction number 4, which is sustainable municipal operations. So the recommendation is that council that report CAO 1221, appointments to the Town of Hanover Economic Development Committee be received, and the Hanover Council approve the appointment of Tammy Lothar and Jason Radstake to the Town of Hanover Economic Development Committee.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Good additions to the committee? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Item 8.2 is PRC 0921, Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. The report is from Sherry Walden, our Director of Parks, Recreation and Culture. Brian, I'm assuming you're going to present that report?
Absolutely, as soon as we have a mover and a seconder.
All right, I'll take Councillor Cable and Councillor Dickert. Trying to keep me on my toes.
Oh, just reminding you, that's all. So the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, the Community Culture Recreation Stream, is a federal infrastructure program designed to create long-term economic growth. As council is aware, an application was submitted to this program for the replacement of trail bridges 1, 2, and 4 and the rehabilitation of Trail Bridge 3 on our community trail system. We received an email on January 29th, 2021 that confirmed federal approval of our application, and a transfer payment agreement as a result must be entered into for federal and provincial funds to be transferred to the municipality, and the transfer payment agreement was received on July 23rd. Quickly, the timing for the project is as follows. So from April to December of this year, background information and investigative studies have been undertaken, are in process, just about complete, several of them. That includes environmental impact, archaeological, soil testing, geotechnical, and heritage impact assessments, as well as Aboriginal consultation. Beginning in next year, throughout next year, we're going to undertake a municipal class environmental assessment, preliminary and detailed designs of the bridges. Required permit applications are going to be developed, as well as tender specifications and documents. 2023 will be a construction year. We'll issue, receive, and assess the tenders, confirm the contractor, and commence construction of up to 2 of the bridge structures. We don't know which ones yet. It'll be a timing issue. And then in 2024, we'll complete construction or rehabilitation of the remaining 2 bridges, and then have a grand opening. So with respect to the financial implications, funding for the 4-year project is projected as follows. The federal contribution will be 40%, the provincial 33 1/3, and the town is contributing 26 2/3 of the funding. Federal portion totals about $860,000, the provincial portion $717,000, and the municipality's portion about $574,000 for a total of $2.15 million. Municipality currently has $230,000 in reserves for this project. We're anticipating spending we're anticipating spending about $27,000 of that amount this year. So we'll have to budget for the remainder in the subsequent years. With respect to the strategic plan, this project checks off all of the boxes with respect to economic development, community, particularly healthier residents, more active and rewarding lifestyles, safer community, as well as environment to preserve or enhance our natural surroundings. And finally, sustainable municipal operations. As council is aware, this project will provide these bridges for about 75 years. So the recommendation is that report PRC 0921, Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Community Culture and Recreation Stream Transfer Payment Agreement be received, and that bylaw number 3171-21 be passed, authorizing the mayor and CAO clerk to complete the transfer payment agreement with the Ministry of Infrastructure as detailed in this report.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions or comments? Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship. Quick question, Brian. Just thinking about what happened with our theater renovation, going from the estimate to the actual. If we get to 2023 and the total cost ends up being $3 million or $3.5 million, then it's up to the town then to pick up the difference between kind of what we've been approved for and what the actual cost is?
Your Worship, that's a great question. And to be quite honest, I don't know how to answer it. you know, we're hoping that construction costs somewhat stabilize from the peak that they've experienced last year and somewhat this year. I think as supply gets back online, and demand so much, you know, and demand for some of this materials stabilizes a little bit, I don't think we're going to see a significant increase in what these costs are going to be. However, we really won't know until we tender. And once we tender, you know, and bring back a report to council, I'm sure there's going to have to be some decisions made as to how we proceed. So I'll just defer that to council at the time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments? I can see this being a huge celebration when it is completed, and a, you know, like a bridge party and a special walk to the bridge for the grand openings. So, all right, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, item 8.3 is report FI 1221. The subject is the open air burning bylaw. It's from Chief Deniger, and I need a mover and seconder. Councillor Fitzsimmons and Councillor Cable. Chief?
Thank you, Your Worship. As background, bylaw 2171-97 is for open air burning, and it requires an update. It's been around since 1997. So we need to make sure it's accurate and up to date. There are significant changes that are suggested, which would result in rescinding of bylaw 2171-97 and introducing a new bylaw, which is 3173-21. So for discussion, open air burn bylaw offers residents in the fire department direction for safe operation of recreational campfires and open air burning. Information such as size of the fire, location and properties, time of day allowed for burning, weather conditions, acceptable materials to burn, supervision and suppression devices that need to be on hand, as well as additional information, is all included in the bylaw. Information is also included regarding the fire department ability to invoice repeat offenders who violate the bylaw. The purpose of the bylaw is to reduce burn complaints and maintain the safety of residents, keeping emergency crews available for other incidents, reducing costs associated with emergency responses, and reducing potential for vehicle accidents that could occur when responders are attending the station for these types of calls. So in the bylaw, what I did was the deletions from the old bylaw are indicated in red strike through in your copy, and then the additions are marked in blue. So the black font is what we're keeping, which isn't a whole lot. All the changes are there for you. There are the financial implications. There's none to the town of Hanover. This information does not change the level of service provided by the fire department. It just clarifies the bylaw information. Linked to the strategic plan is for a community. So the recommendation is that report FI 12-21 open air burn bylaw 3173-21 be received, and that council approve the attached report, and council pass the open air burning bylaw 3173-21, thus rescinding the old bylaw of 2171-97. Any questions?
My question is, the time has changed?
The time has changed. We added 1 hour.
And you could always have a fire from sunrise?
It wasn't clear, but in discussion with other parties, bylaw and the fire prevention officer, we all felt that during the day was okay, especially if you had a shift worker, that was the only time that they could enjoy a recreational fire. We felt that it was something that could be supported.
Okay, so the extension to 1 in the morning, did you have requests for that, or is that sort of standard throughout different municipalities?
Every municipality is different. We did have some issue with some people thinking that midnight was a little too early, in discussion with some of the residents in past. So we felt that 1 a.m. was adequate. It wasn't too late. wasn't too early. And it was only an extension of 1 hour from the previous bylaw.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Cable?
Thank you, Worship. I was really happy to see Chief about the reference to gas-fired outdoor camp devices, and it's saying that, so to me that would be like a propane kind of fire table, something like that. And it talks about how it's exempt from the provisions. Do we at some point ever come back and look at kind of how those items fit in with some of the kind of items as part of this bylaw, or are we content, like, because in theory I could have a gas-powered fire table going at 3 in the morning or 5 in the morning, right? Because it's outside the bylaw. Is that
correct? Yeah, yes, Your Worship, through you. These are for spark-inducing types of fires, campfires. So the propane or the natural gas provides no smoke, no spark. So there's no complaints about smoke. There's no issue for spark-induced grass fires and things of that nature. So the propane and natural gas are not part of this bylaw. It will provide flame, but not a lot of the other stuff we're concerned about.
excellent? No, thank you.
Okay. Other comments or questions? Councillor Fleet?
Thank you, Your Worship. Jeff, I was just wondering, going back to the time of the fires between sunrise and 1 a.m. I'm just wondering if we should have like a time frame. Sunrise is pretty vague to me. Like, should it be like 7 to 1, or I'd like to see a time frame in there.
Through you, Your Worship, in response to that question, because the sunrise time varies throughout the year, we felt that saying it was sunrise would be more accurate description. We can certainly look at a change to the time if council suggests a more black and white start time. That was when we wrote the amendment. That's what we were thinking is keep it with the sunrise of the time of year.
Councillor Fleet?
I still would like to see a time frame. I just don't like the sunrise. I don't know how the rest of council feels. But.
Any comments about times? I'm not seeing any. Deputy Mayor Hicks?
So I guess my comment would be that I'm okay with the sunrise provision, but because it does coordinate with the time. It's just that the time is fluctuating given our season. So there is a time there. It's sunrise, and most people can see what time that is a day or so in advance. You know when sunrise is going to be. So I'm okay with the sunrise provision.
Thank you. Councillor Fitzsimmons?
Thank you, Your Worship. I completely agree with Deputy Mayor Hicks. There is a time, it just varies from season to season, and you know, instead of nailing it down right to the minute, I think we can agree that this is okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, Chief, can you just, or maybe it would be Dawn, but just so our residents are aware, if there is a backyard fire or whatever is, the smoke is bothering them and they want to make a complaint, it's anonymous, and how do they make that complaint?
Typically, they would call the emergency response number. That would be 911. And the 911 operator would then put them in touch with the bylaw officer during the day or the police so that they don't have to specify. So in our call sheet, the dispatcher knows to call bylaw officer Campbell during the day, during office hours, and then the police at night. So they don't have to remember all the different numbers.
All right, and it is anonymous.
Mr. Tedford might be able to answer that, Your Worship, better as far as receiving the complaints. I know we investigate it. We need an address and we need to know where it is, and we will investigate as well and assist the bylaw officer Campbell. I don't know if Mr. Tedford has any comments as well.
Thank you. Dawn?
No, when we receive complaints on bylaws, they, from the general public, they are kept anonymous. And that is a standard procedure throughout the province. When you end up going into the court system, that's the only time you start to see them releasing names. But up until that point, we have to keep them anonymous.
Thank you. I just want our residents to feel that if there is smoke that is bothering them, they can call. And there's no harm, you know, if it's bothering their way of life, call. So, all right, I will call the question. All in favor? That is carried as is. Thank you. Item 8.4 is PB 1721. This is part lot control on 705A and 705B on 25th Avenue. It's from Mr. Tedford, our Director of Development, and we need a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Fleet and Deputy Mayor Hicks. Thank you. Dawn?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is getting to be a pretty regular procedure for us as Mr. Whaling continues to sell those semis throughout the town. On July 21st, 2021, Brian Whaling, agent for 1786934 Ontario Limited, submitted an application for part lot control under section 50(7) of the Planning Act. RSO 1990 as amended for the property described as Lot 29, registered plan M16M-56 and known as 705 25th Ave in the town of Hanover, County of Grey. I also looked at the bylaw to see if I could show you a site or, and it's not attached to that either. So I'm gonna have to explain, this is the house when you're driving into the Brandy subdivision. It's when you turn on 25th Avenue South, it's the first house on the left-hand side. It's the very corner lot and the last one on that side of the street to require part lot release. So that's the orientation for you. Excuse me. Zoning bylaw amendment 2912-15 was amended on March 15th, 2018 with bylaw 3009-18, which changed the zoning of the subject lands from residential type 3 to a residential type 3 site specific R3-25 to permit the semi-detached dwelling with amendment provisions such as lot coverage and setbacks. The semi-detached dwelling is currently under construction. Subsequent to council passing the required bylaw, the existing semi-detached located at 705A and 705B, 25th Avenue can be sold as two individual properties. In accordance with section 7.1 of the Planning Act, the bylaw does not take effect until it has been approved by the county and registered within the expiration of the bylaw. There are no direct financial implications to the town associated with this report. And the recommendation is that report PB 1721, part lot control 705A and B, 25th Ave, be received, and that council passed bylaw 3170-21, authorizing the mayor and clerk to allow part lot release for property known as 705A and 705B, 25th Avenue. The strategic is for economic development, and if there's any questions, Your Worship, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions? Pretty straightforward. We can always say it's similar, almost once a month, like you said. So I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Item 8.5 is PB 1821 subdivision agreement amendment. This is Saugeen Cedar Heights East. again from Mr. Tedford, and I need a mover and seconder to put that on the floor. Councillor Dickert and Councillor Fleet. Don?
Thank you, Your Worship. This particular subdivision agreement was back before council before, and there was some changes to be made. But in other words, report PB 1821, the background on that is on July 12th, 2021 meeting, council passed bylaw 3167-21, which amended bylaw 3071-19 to recognize development of phase 2 and phase 3 of the Saugeen Cedar Heights East subdivision. During the meeting, members requested that the schedules to the subdivision agreement be updated to include all phases of the development. If you remember right, the question was asked, why did water, sewer, and storm not show the phase 3 portion of how they're being serviced, those 5 lots? We went back now and corrected that. So as a result of adding schedules B2, B4, B5, we didn't really add them, we amended them. B2, B4, and B5. I also B9, which showed the street names as well. So the subdivision agreement, the bylaw 3167 should be rescinded and replaced with bylaw 3172-21, which is attached to your council agenda tonight as 10.5. And when we get to the bylaw and read that bylaw at that time, it's simply the same, similar amendments to what we did when we looked at bylaw 3167. So we're just basically replacing that bylaw. And the best part about the whole thing is when we registered against title now, we're going to have a subdivision agreement that reflects what got constructed on site. If you remember right, or remember the subdivision, we ended up having a whole subdivision, and they changed it because the economy was dropping at the end of 2019. So they pulled it out and made it a phase 1, phase 2. And anyways, COVID or whatever, but 2020 took right off. They ended up registering phase 2 right away, and they ended up buying and registering phase 3 at the same time, causing a little bit of controversy here and there. But we have now got a bylaw and all the schedules that reflect what is on site and what's being developed, and can now be registered against the properties for everybody to have to look up, or they can go by. So it's the report, the recommendation is, or the link to the strategic plan first, Your Worship, is that it's economic development. It is attached to the community as well, and also the environment. And sustainable municipal operations as well. The recommendation is that report PB 1821 subdivision agreement amendment 250-1563 Ontario Inc. Saugeen Cedar Heights East be received. That council rescind bylaw 3167-21, and further that council pass bylaw 3172-21 to amend bylaw 3071-19, being a bylaw to enter into a subdivision agreement between the town of Hanover and York Weller of 250-1563 Ontario Inc. If there's any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Thank you, Don. Questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Item 9 is committees of council minutes, and we have 5 sets of minutes, and I need a mover and seconder to put those on the floor before they're highlighted. Councillor Hocking and Councillor Cable. Thank you. The first one, Economic Committee minutes from July 21st. Councillor Hocking.
Thank you, Your Worship. You have the minutes, and I'm sure you've all read through them, so I'm just going to highlight a few things. Tonight, we appointed 2 members to the committee, and they attended as guests at our meeting in July. Tammy is employed at the Electrical Contacts, and Jason is plant manager at Edgewell. We look forward to those two who will be very good additions to our committee. Then we go through a portion we call the strategic planning and updates. And the first one we talk about, it's on our focus all the time, is the HIP, Hanover's Innovative People Program. The second one is the Community Improvement Program. And April went through these two programs mainly for information to our two new appointees. As part of our business and retention and expansion, 44 businesses responded to the survey, and that's almost the same percentage as the last time. The themes that came out of the survey are workforce development, stress and health, safety, and the downtown. There's an action plan being suggested that we do a public meeting, and we're going to invite Chamber and DIA members. The tourism, and I'm sure you've all noted these new signs that are in our community. That's part of our wayfinding strategy that you approved last year. I think they look great, and we're getting lots of positive feedback. Then we go through a number of updates, and we have a Grey County update. We have a launch pad update. We have an update from the Chamber. We then have an update from the Sauga Municipal Airport. And that's basically to keep the economic committee members in tune with what's going on. New business, Mr. Tedford presented Hanover building stats to our committee, and they were very positive. The Cultural Roundtable gave an update. And if you've been following social media, we're pretty excited for this upcoming weekend on August the 15th. And thanks to Councillor Cable and Councillor Fleet for their added support, as we're going to attempt to have our first Music in the Square on August the 15th at 2 p.m. I looked at the weather long range forecast, and it's going to be good weather. So all we need now is the people to sign up, and you can get all that information on our website. And finally, Dave Ford gave us an update on the Grey Bruce Public Health that I think you probably received a copy of it. If you haven't, it just basically stresses that employers should continually approach their employees with regard to the COVID protocol. So I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Hawking. I don't see any questions. We'll move on. 9.2 is the Hanover-Walkerton Waste Management Committee minutes from July 27th. Councillor Dickert.
Thank you, Your Worship. At the July 27th meeting, BDO presented the audited financial statements for 2020. There were no anomalies identified, and the report was accepted by the committee and recommended acceptance by both Hanover and Brockton councils. We received confirmation that we will be getting $20,000 to do a leachate collection system review. Currently, the leachate must be hauled by truck for processing at the sewage treatment plants. We're looking at the possibility of installing a pipeline system to connect that directly to the sewage plant. This would give us increased efficiencies and cost savings by not having to supply that trucking. Cobite Engineering will complete that study. We reviewed landfill quantities. Year-to-date residential waste for Hanover is down 4.55%. Walkerton is up 4.7%. On the commercial side, Hanover waste is up 13.5% and Walkerton is down 3.2%. So that equates to a year-to-date overall volume of waste received at about 3.12% higher than 2019. Looked at the operational report and there was no concerns there. And under new business, I have requested that we initiate discussions on future landfill options, as the life expectancy of this site is just over 20 years, and the development of a new site can take in excess of 20 years. So it's time we start to look at our options and see where our neighbors will be with this one, as Brockton wants to continue, or just what we'll do with that. Excuse me. And I also requested that we start to discuss the funding of the closure and post-closure operations that will be required. As we heard earlier in the audit report, Currently, there is about a $650,000 liability there, and it is expected to be about a $5 million total by the time the landfill site is closed. So I think it's good timing to start looking at how we're going to cover those costs once they come upon us. So that is my report. Any questions, I'll be glad to try and answer them.
Thank you, Councillor Dickert. Any comments or questions? Garbage is expensive, very expensive. Okay, 9.3, Parks, Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee minutes from July 28th. Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Worship. The Parks, Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee met on July the 28th. Of course, the Aquatic Center has reopened at the P&H Center. And so you can go online and book your spot 1 week in advance, or you can also call the front desk and they can help patrons to get booked in to use the pool. Even though the pool has just reopened and we're in August, of course, ice is on the mind of a lot of people. And so the ice plant startup is planned for September the 13th, with the first available ice scheduled for September the 27th. So that will be here before we know it. Our main item continues to be the parks assessment. So we did have a summary of recommendations from Play Check Services. And so the parks assessment direction, which was approved by council and by the advisory committee, was reviewed with some updates being provided. So the third-party inspection was completed in May of 2021, and Parks and Rec staff have summarized the recommendations and prepared some action items for us to move forward. Service material has been added to some of our highest priority areas, and service seems to be one of the main items of concern. Some ground equipment has been removed, including the teeter-totters at Kingston Ballpark and Robert F. Steers, and the spring units at Optimus and Connect Park. So based on the recommendations, some additional equipment will be removed at the end of the 2021 season. Some of our parks are going to be in severe need of capital investment in 2022. For example, Optimus Park will only have swings left. Everything else will be removed from Optimus Park before the end of the year. So we'll also be working to develop a priority list for neighborhood park redevelopment. We also are having discussions around the idea of a Center of Excellence Park. And so that's kind of that larger park that would be for the community and also an attraction for visitors to Hanover. And so we did have members of our committee that went out to Elora and Fergus, Elmira, Southampton, and Kincardine to look at parks around the region. And so we looked at photos of those parks and discussed observations and input and considerations for when we're planning for Hanover Center of Excellence Park in the future. And accessible parks and playgrounds seems to be certainly something to consider based on what we saw in Elmira, Fergus, and Elora. I know that's certainly something that Saugeen Shores is looking at as well. So it'll be something that we're going to keep tabs on over the next couple of years. So we're kind of juggling both neighborhood parks at this point and the idea of a Center of Excellence Park. So that kind of is the main thing that we're working on. It's been really eye-opening to look at the state of some of our neighborhood parks. And hopefully in the next few years, we will be able to make an improvement in that area. If anyone has any questions.
Good, thank you. I don't see any questions at this time. 9.4 is the Planning Advisory Committee minutes. Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. Planning Advisory Committee met Tuesday, August the 3rd. I'll just highlight some of the information. Number 4, zoning law bylaw amendment number Z 3-21-14-5 Hanover Inc. Daniel Chatley, which Don had discussed earlier in the meeting. Number 5, zoning bylaw amendment number Z 4-21, Don and Donna Tedford. Chair Tim Norwell welcomed Stuart Doyle to the meeting to discuss his client's proposal. Stu Doyle followed up with previous meeting by stating that the application remains unchanged and then presented a conceptual layout of for potential future development of the lands. His client is proposing to rezone a portion of the subject lands from future development D to residential type R1 zone. The existing buildings, including a dry shed, will remain as is. No farm use is proposed on the subject property. There's a parcel of land located within the subject property that is owned by others. Travis Burnside from Cobit Engineer and Ron Cooper Public Works accompanied the application to complete field work. A survey is being completed to determine location of infrastructure and assessment requirements. Number 6, Don and Donna Tedford again. Brian Cheshire stated that any condition imposed upon consent applications must be fulfilled within 1 year from date of decision of the Committee of Adjustment. Otherwise, application for consent will be deemed to be refused. In order for the proposed lots to have frontage and open and maintained public road 8th Avenue North just to extend to the subject property. Number 7, this is a consent application number B7-21, Missionary Church, Mitchell Fletcher. Chair Norwood, welcome Mitch to the meeting. The Secretary Treasurer update the committee members relating to previous consent application file number B13-03 to sever lands to expand the parking lot at Hanover Missionary Church. The consent was finalized by the town of Hanover on January 30th, 2004. Mr. Fletcher stated that part 1 of the draft reference plan will be transferred to the Hanover Chrysler to develop a property, and the existing buildings will be demolished. That would be the old Beaver Lumber building, I guess. And the portable on the property has a lease to expire August 2022, which will then be removed from the property to make room for Hanover Chrysler to expand. Number 9, this is a proposed site plan geofocus group. Mr. Norwood welcomed the group to the meeting. This is a property at the corner of 14th Street and 24th Avenue. It's a proposed 6-story apartment building with a total of 142 proposed built rental units. The subject property is currently zoned large format commercial Z3 zone with comprehensive zoning bylaw 2912-15. The zoning permits multiple residential development existing 9 units, maximum building height of 12.0 meters. The Secretary Treasurer circulated the proposed site plan to the town and county staff for their comments. County Gray are generally encouraging to see additional rental housing being proposed in the county through this development. County staff further stated the proposal may qualify for development charge exemption of the county's development charge fees. County Transportation Service will require a traffic impact study and daylight triangle A1 foot reserve road widening for utility purposes will be required along the frontage of this property. So it's sort of nice to see that property being looked at for development. And that's all I have to report, and I'd take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Fleet. Any questions? Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you, Worship. Just on that number 9, is there any plan to have commercial operation on the ground floor?
What I understand, no. And maybe Don could jump in on this, but I understand no.
Not at this time, no, there is no commercial being proposed. It'll be an R5 multiple residential, 2 buildings, 6 stories, a total of 142 units, 71 in each building.
Isn't, Your Worship, isn't the current zoning commercial?
Yes, it is, but the C1 and the C2 and the C1 zoning, C1 allows pure residential as long as it's 165 feet off the main street is the policy on that, and it has to be more than 9 units. You can be R5 zoning then. So a lot of municipalities now are treating multiple residential now as a commercial enterprise, especially apartment buildings rather than residential. But you could have it either in an R5 or a C3, and that's what we're finding when we do most of our research with other municipalities.
So can I ask, Don, do you see any concern going to the county when we need to change the zoning?
No, I'm less, and Brian also made the same comments. The demographics from 5 years ago when Chris Barfoot was trying to do commercial was a problem and residential wasn't. It didn't take very long now for us to realize that we have a shortage in commercial, and now we're getting an extreme shortage in residential as well. I do believe the county's comments coming back said absolutely nothing towards the zoning aspect of the property being C3 or R5. all they commented on was that they generally like to see purpose-built rental units. And it was actually pretty good that I haven't seen anything else come back since then either. Brian, have you heard anything?
No, Your Worship, just to reiterate what Mr. Tedford has said is the last year and a half when we've completed comprehensive review and looking at all of our special policy areas with respect to the available development land that we have, it's clear that we don't have enough commercial, employment, or residential lands for our needs within the next 25 years, where we're within the provincial planning period. So this has changed since 3 or 4 years ago, where the county pushed back somewhat and said, why do you want to rezone commercial to residential when you don't have enough commercial lands? The evidence is really compelling now. We don't have enough of any kind of lands for within the next 25 years. So I think the county, that argument, and I think the county realizes it as well, that argument about protecting commercial lands really doesn't carry much weight anymore.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Hicks, anything further? No. I do have Councillor Cable first, and then you, Don.
I apologize, Your Worship. I didn't realize we'd have a discussion on this item, but I do have a conflict as I live within the circulation area close to the property that we're discussing.
Thank you.
I'm in the same boat as Councillor Cable. I have a conflict on item 4, I think it is, and 5 and 6 of the planning minutes. I didn't realize that either till now. I don't declare it at this time.
Thank you. So with that apartment unit on 14th and 24th Avenue, the next step will be to rezone?
If they'll need the same thing as the one on 434 18th Avenue, to go to the R5, they cannot meet the R5 standards because in the downtown, in the C1 zone, we don't have a height. So it's unlimited. Somebody could put 10 floors downtown in the C1 zone. You go out into the C2 zone, it's 12 meters. It's the highest you can go, 4 stories. And the same with the C3 zone. You can only go 4 stories. So it is a major planning thing. When you look at a lot of different planning documents, there's reasons for restricting height. And the one at 434 does go a little bit beyond the 12 meters. This one goes quite a bit, it's 18 meters, about 4 meters higher. So quite a bit higher. That's something council will have to deal with when they come back. If you notice the planning minutes, they ask for the project to be resubmitted again, showing more concepts about how they're going to address the height and the appearance. And they have submitted some conceptual designs of what it might look like. And they're actually going to look at introducing and including the county's requirements of daylight triangles, 1-foot reserves, access being not off 24th Ave, which it isn't right now anyway. So there's a few things to be looked at to come back to on the proposed multiple residential on 24th Ave and 14th Street.
Okay, that's good. Thanks. Lots happening. Item 9.5 is the Cultural Roundtable Committee minutes from August 4th. Councillor Hawking.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council members will note that there's a bit of overlaps with economic development, but I'm going to separate them out. The first one I'd like to report on is the Saugeen Artists Guild are undertaking a downtown mural project, which will be for the month of September. And for your information, the province of Ontario declares the month of September as Cultural Month. And later in the minutes, you will see that Hanover is going to celebrate its cultural days on September the 25th and 26th. We're going to initiate a second culture exchange event. If you remember back in January, as a means to inform our new residents of our assets in the community. We undertook a virtual cultural exchange event, and we're going to do the same, a second one on September the 14th. Item number 7 makes reference to our cultural days. There are a lot of activities that are being planned, and hopefully we get the same responses we did last year. Laura Christian from the Parks and Rec is looking into the safety requirements that we will need to enforce. I'm sure everyone looks at the artist spotlight, the artist spotlight, and there are some of the people who have been highlighted recently. And on September the 20th, members of the Cultural Roundtable are coming to council to give you an information presentation on what we've accomplished since the beginning of the Cultural Committee. We're looking forward to sharing our successes with members of council. 2 members, Susan Sacco, who represents the library, and Bev Morgan, who represents the Artists Guild, will be making that presentation. And then as with the economic development, we have roundtable member updates. And as always, I'm open to any questions.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? All right, I don't see any. So that was the last set of minutes. We had 5 sets of minutes that we were approving. It was moved by Councillor Hawking and Councillor Cable. And at this time, I'll ask that another member of council second that motion as Councillor Cable declared a conflict. Councillor Fitzsimmons, thank you. And we are approving the information that we received in those sets of minutes and the recommendations also contained in those minutes. All in favor? That is carried. All right, next is our bylaws, and we'll just go through those, and then I'd like to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and continue. So item 10 is bylaws. We have 6 of them, and I need a mover, and no, we only have 5 of them because we're deferring one. I need a mover and seconder before I ask the clerk for the intent. Councillor Dickert and Councillor Cable. So Brian, you can give the intent of the 5 bylaws, please.
Okay, Worship. Okay. Bylaw number 3168-21 is a bylaw of the Town of Hanover to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Hanover at its regular meeting held on July 12, 2021, and special meeting held on July 21st, 2021. Okay, bylaw number 3170-21 is a bylaw to remove certain lands from part lot control in the Town of Hanover. Bylaw number 3171-21 is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and CAO clerk to authorize an agreement between the Town of Hanover and Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Infrastructure. Bylaw number 3172-21 is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and CAO clerk to amend bylaw number 3071-19, being a bylaw to enter into a subdivision agreement between the Town of Hanover and 2501563 Ontario Incorporated. And bylaw number 3173-21, being a bylaw of the Town of Hanover to regulate and establish procedures for recreational campfires and open air burning within the Town of Hanover. Right?
That's it.
And we're going to defer 3169-21.
Correct. Thank you. So it's been moved by Councillor Dickert, second by Councillor Cable, that bylaw numbers 3168-21 and 3170 through to 3173-21 be introduced and that they be taken as read a first, second, and third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and inserted in the bylaw book. Are there any further questions or comments before we vote? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, it is 8:40. Do you want a 5 or a 10-minute break? I see 10. First one to call it. 10 minutes. We're back at 8:50. See you then. Now we can resume. All right, item 11 is correspondence requiring action. The first one, 11.1. This is a resolution from the City of Woodstock, and they are requesting that they're calling on the Premier of Ontario to bring together the Ministry of the Attorney General, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services to work together on both short and long-term solutions, complete with funding to take proper responsibility and action to address the affordable housing, homelessness, and addiction crisis. I think it says it all. So, thoughts? Would you like to support this resolution? Or Councillor Dickert and then Deputy Mayor Hicks?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I would like to support this motion or this resolution. I think it does tick off all the boxes of things that we know are a concern in our community, and anything we can do to further that cause, I think deserves our support.
Thank you. You'll move it?
I will move that.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Hicks?
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'm quite prepared to second that. I don't love everything in the motion as it's stated. Well, not even in the motion, in their resolution as it's stated. Some of the whereases I would have worded a little bit differently. I think they're biting off a lot in this resolution. It needs to be bitten, but I'm not sure that anyways. Even though I don't love everything in the wording, I think the intention is very good, and a collaborative effort between the various ministries is also very good. So for those reasons, I support. I'm in favor of supporting.
Thank you. It does send a message.
Yeah.
All in favor of supporting this resolution? That is carried. Thank you. Item 11.2, this is a request from the Canadian Union of Postal Workers asking for support for their Delivering Community Power program, which involves expanding services for postal banking, elder check-ins, high-speed internet, affordable food delivery, electrical vehicle charging, and community hubs. So, your thoughts? Councillor Dickert.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think they have a lot of good suggestions there that merit consideration, but I feel this is an issue that should be between CUPW and Canada Post as a corporation, and I think to receive it for information is what I would prefer to see here.
Thank you. I'm seeing a few nodding heads. Councillor Fleet, you're in agreement?
Yes, I am. I'll second Councillor Dickert's motion.
I don't think we need to a motion to receive.
Okay.
The clerk can correct me on that. I think we just note and file. Ryan?
Well, I guess you could have moved it and seconded to get it on the floor, and then you could have just tabled it.
Which I didn't do, but we do have a mover and seconder. So.
Can you repeat who those were again, please?
It was Councillor Dickert and Councillor Fleet. So that puts it on the floor, and then we just agree to table it, right?
Correct. Yes.
And then we vote on tabling.
Yes.
Yes. All in favor to table. Okay, that's carried. Thanks. Boy, rules. All right, item 12, reports and correspondence for information. 12.1 is report FI 1121, the monthly activity report for fire for July. It's from Chief Deniger. Chief?
am here. It took me a minute. Okay, yeah, so as mentioned, Mayor, this is for July 2021. In July, we saw 14 calls total. Number 1 was medical, number 2 was false fire calls, and number 3 were pre-fire conditions. Annual calls to July, there's 109. We're slightly ahead of 2020. Number 1 is medical, number 2 is false fire calls, and number 3 is rescues. Our inspections are back on track with 19 inspections completed, 17 reports issued, and 9 inspections in progress. 2 homes were visited for Alarm for Life, and 0 were compliant. And we had 1 public education activity, which was a tour of the new of the station for the new St. John's. Not St. John's, Salvation Army staff. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? All right, very good. 12.2 is PW 12-21. This is the water treatment plant operations report from April 1st to June 30th. It's from Mr. Cooper, and it's for information. Ron.
Thank you, Worship. My Chief Operator, Ted Knapp, has put this report together, and he is here tonight. So probably the discussion on that, I could get him to go over it with council, if you do not mind.
Thank you. Ted? Ted, we can't hear you, even though it doesn't say muted. Might just have to click on it a couple of times or something. Not yet. Not sure how that works. It could be all yours, Ron.
Okay, back to me. Thank you. I can take you through it just briefly. The main item at the wastewater plant they've been working on is when we put the dechlorination system in, it utilizes sodium bisulfate. And we had the contractor back to make some adjustments there, mainly based upon we have a fair bit of flow variation between daytime and nighttime differential to make sure we were getting the proper dosing of it. We've ran the system over the last 3 weeks and seems to be working properly. So we're kind of in a position now to be accepting the project that was installed. That being said, it still comes with a 1-year warranty project, but our final acceptance of that will be occurring. And due to all the activity that was going on the dechlorination and work at the wastewater plant, spring sludge haulage, which we typically do, was delayed till early July when we got some application on hay ground, late July when we got some stuff on wheat ground. So we did a previous project, 2017, 2018, on the storage tank. So that definitely helped us out, pull us through that extra timeline this year. If there would have any questions, hopefully I can get Ted back online and we would be pleased to answer.
Okay, any questions for either Ted or Ron? I don't see any. So Ted, can you do a test? Any sound yet?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Nothing? You can hear me? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, very good. All right, so we'll go on to the next report. So it's 12.3 and we have PW 1321. This is the water treatment plant operations report. Again, from Ron Cooper, our Director of Public Works, and Ted is here to share it too, I believe, so.
Yeah, that is correct. So if
Ted would like to go through the highlights on this one for that period, April 1st to June 30th.
As long as my sound works, should be good to go.
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right. So we did replace the media in filter number 2. That took us about a month and a half. And we got our SCADA program, or we did some upgrades to our trends to make it a little bit more user friendly and to help troubleshoot issues. And then we have been working very hard at removing beaver dams on the Exit Creek for Rural Lake. We have been getting help from the one neighbor. He has been actually trapping some of the beavers, because we were removing beaver dams pretty much every other day there for a while. But other than that, our plant has been working very, very well, and I believe our call-ins are down quite a bit compared to the first 3 months I was here.
Thanks for that, Ted. I noticed that your alarm calls are down. I think you'll all be very happy that you don't get called out in the middle of the night. So that's good. Any questions for Ted? Councillor Dickert.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to follow up. It says May 26th to put on the taste and odor system controls. I did have a concerned resident that was asking or concerned with the taste and odor in their water. Just wondered, what is the process? How do you follow up when you receive one of those? Is there any do you connect with that resident, or how do you handle those?
So what we did this year is we actually put the taste and odor system on a little bit earlier in May. And then we received a complaint in May 26th. And then we just upped the level of taste and odor from 1 to 2. Now we did not follow up, but we do monitor the water very closely. And as long as we don't get another complaint, we I guess assume that it is working properly.
Okay, so if this resident is still concerned, then I'll just forward that to Mr. Cooper, and you can maybe follow up with them at that time.
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I don't see any. All right, thanks, Ted. Thanks, Ron. All right, item 12.4 is the quarterly statistics. Dawn, this is for information.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, that's very much just basically to let you know where we're at up until the end of June. We've got a total of 77 permits that have been issued compared to 40 some last year. So this year was big in picking up on the number of permits, especially in January. The value of the permits was 128,178 last. That's they have to add the 66,000 to it for the last three months. So you're sitting in around the 190,000, but our 236,000 included the Riviera permit. That's why it's an escalated number. If you look at the construction of new dwellings at the end of those charts, you'll see that this year in 2021, we had 7 single families and 1 single family in the last 3 quarters for a total of 8. And we've had 27 plus 7 for 34 townhouse new dwellings. And last year in that same time, we had 11 houses and 0 townhouses. So there was a lull at the end of 2019, which came into the first quarter of 2020. And you'll notice we only had 3 permits total, 3 new dwellings, no townhouses. And then that's where we've seen everything jump between this year in 2021 and in the first 3 months. We actually jumped up to 27 new towns in 3 months and 7 new residences. So that's the main reason I wanted to let you show you where that jump happened. We were on a downturn going into the end of 2019, and 2020 with the COVID, I don't imagine anything else did it, but the economy certainly turned around for us. I just wanted you to see that.
That's good.
If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Any questions for Dawn? Okay, thanks, Dawn. 12.5 is the Saugeen Mobility and Regional Transit, otherwise known as SMART, the board meeting minutes from April 23rd. Councillor Dickert.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our April 23rd meeting, SMART continues to look for growth opportunities as well as funding opportunities. And in doing that, we've met with the Ontario Health Team and also with Home and Community Support Services. We have an employee assistance program now in place for our staff. We continue to look at moving SMART to the Grey and Bruce County wide operation, which we feel requires developing a clear and concise business plan. So we are working on that with the help of the Municipal Innovation Council, and they're based out of Saugeen Shores, and they've agreed to help us to create that plan. Our first quarter operational report indicated overall ridership down 50%, a direct result of the COVID restrictions. Our first quarter ridership for Hanover is down 44%, with 806 rides in 2021 versus 1,447 rides in 2020, again, due to COVID. We had a good discussion on transitioning to electric vehicles, but it's not feasible this time due to the charging capabilities and also converting the vehicles for accessibility. The battery storage in the vehicles just does not allow us to convert the vehicles to the for the lifts and that are required for the wheelchairs. Also had a good discussion on vehicle sizing and the need for the 9-passenger size models, which you'll see quite a few of them on the road now. The modern mobility aids are significantly bigger than what they were in the past, and sometimes you need the size of those 9-passenger buses just to get some of the single units on it. We continue to work on our policy and policy reviews, and we've approved several at that meeting, and that was certainly a long overdue process. Most of them had not been looked at for several years, so that's ongoing. And we're also working on a review of the partnership agreement, and that should be going for a legal opinion in the next month or so, and we should be able to report back on that in the next couple of months. And those are my highlights.
That's good. Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Dickert? I don't see any. All right. Item 12.6 is the Hanover Police Services Board meeting minutes from July 19th. And I can highlight that all Hanover Police Service members have been trained in use of force and firearms. And Gordon Martin has been hired as a 4th class constable. And Constable Kim Hertzberger has been promoted from to 2nd class constable. So that's always good to see. Kim's a local girl, and sometimes you feel a connection with some of these people, and glad to see her moving up. We're also having the Inspectorate of Policing attend our October 18th meeting. And this gentleman is a former chief of the Winnipeg Police Service, and his role is to provide oversight in policing. His name is Devin Clunas. And the inspectorate, they monitor and conduct inspections of police services and police service boards. And they also investigate complaints related to provision of adequate policing services. So we look forward to him attending our meeting in October. So, and of course, open to any questions, if there are any. Thank you. Item 12.7 is the library board meeting minutes from July 22nd. Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. The board had a strategic plan review and discussion was had. And the board decided to add a goal to encourage people back to the library after COVID recedes a bit further, to be laser focused on that particular thing. We're undertaking a CEO performance review, and policy committee is currently working on updating children and teen services policies. And some discussion was had about some possible upcoming fundraising opportunities that the library will look into. And that's pretty well the meeting.
Thank you. That's good. Any questions? No, thank you. 12.8 is the Saugeen Municipal Airport Commission meeting minutes. There's 2 sets of regular minutes and 1 special meeting. Councillor Hawking.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just go through the highlights. The meeting on June the 16th, we began.
Are the kids here?
Oh,
okay.
We began discussing the issue of the Saugeen Valley Conservation. That there is a safety hazard that we need to deal with the downdraft caused by the growth of trees in the south end of the airport. You will see in the special meeting that it was concentrated just with the Saugeen Valley, and I'll make comment on that one. There's a couple of new hangar builds, which is always exciting. RFP, we're moving closer to finalizing that. There is some interest being expressed on restaurant services at the airport. Update on the autocross. Unfortunately, we've had to cancel that because we couldn't get insurance coverage for the liability. No municipality can access that. So those are the highlights for that particular meeting. Oh, pardon me, I forgot the walking trail. There has been some interest expressed that we construct a walking trail around the airport for those enthusiasts that come to the airport, and we're looking at that option. The meeting on the 16th, unfortunately, I was in a meeting with council, and I could not attend. But basically, it summarizes, and it's quite a in-depth summary from Catherine McKay, our recording secretary, because she has captured all the information. It's truly amazing. But the last paragraph sort of summarizes, which says talks are ongoing. So there's an issue with we thought maybe we could just take the trees out, and no, that's not going to happen. So we have some discussion to do because there is a ongoing safety issue. On July the 21st, 1:30, by the way, you're always welcome to join us. We're on the 3rd Wednesday of the month at 1:30. I'll review these minutes with you too. We had BDO, we had Mr. Thomas, another JDSS graduate, I may add, who is now an accountant with BDO, completed the audit and answered questions. Nice to see revenue from our ag lands. We have generated already $14,000 from our first cut of hay, and hopefully we'll generate some more from the second cut. The airport manager's report talked about fuel sales being up, and there's great interest in our Saugeen Municipal Airport. As you noted when I said there was 2 recent builds. And then a new business, Hanover has done its bit looking after the accounting services. And I suggested to the other 2 members representing the municipality that one of their municipalities take over looking after bookkeeping. And apparently West Gray is considering the option, and I'll find out on our next meeting date who's looking after the accounting services that Christine and her staff have been looking after for the last couple of years. A little bit on the lawn equipment, airport security, and we're working on an overnight policy. There seems to be some interest with pilots flying in with their family and setting up some camping overnight, and we like to encourage that whole approach. So those is a quick summary of 3 different meetings, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Hawking. Any questions? Okay, you're right, the minutes are very good. So, all right, item 12.9, this is a notice from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. The government has introduced amendments to the Municipal Act, and they come into force on September 19th this year. And it states that municipalities will not be able to regulate noise related to the delivery of goods to the following destinations, and there are 4 of them: retail business establishments, restaurants, including cafes and bars, hotels and motels, and goods distribution facilities. Their reasoning is they're saying it's going to help reduce rush hour traffic, lower fuel costs for businesses, and reduce greenhouse gas and other emissions. So my question, and I'm not sure whether Mr. Tedford or Mr. Teixeira, so do we have a bylaw that states that you can't deliver like before 7 in the morning to a restaurant or not? And I gather now if we do have a bylaw, we can't enforce it. Brian?
Don, do you want to just briefly talking to Mr. Campbell? And yeah, this is we do have a bylaw to this effect. So Don, I'm not sure if Ken's talked to you, but he suggested that we just add those 4 exemptions into the bylaw to make it complete.
Yeah, we had the same discussion. Our bylaw really doesn't address the delivery thing, but it is in there. It's a noise thing. And if anybody wants to know really what the complaints are, it's that beep, beep, beep when the trucks are backing up at 4 or 5 in the morning or 7. But anyways, it's something that Ken has already talked to, and I've talked to him about the same thing as Brian's comment. So Ken has never really had that many complaints on those businesses. The biggest one we get still is construction.
Oh, right.
And they're not exempt.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. All right. All right, so that was a notice for information. So moving on, item 13 is councillor and staff updates. Let's start with Councillor Dickert.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Actually been fairly quiet over the last month. Worked at the vaccination hub, attended the physio clinic open house. Nice to see that project come to fruition. Had a smart board meeting and waste management meeting, and that kind of sums up what I've been doing.
Thank you. Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, quiet is the understatement this month. 1 library board meeting, and that's about the sum of the month, really. Not much going on this month.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a few things. On July 14th, I was able to have a discussion with MPP Walker and MP Ruff regarding Hanover's land needs and our boundary issues. Lots going on in the area of COVID, of course. So we have meetings with respect to the Vaccination Distribution Task Force and emergency operations committees, both at the county and at Hanover level. Weekly updates with Bill Walker, Alex Ruff, and Medical Officer of Health, and also with Lisa Thompson. And special meetings, of course, with respect to individual specific issues that may come up with respect to COVID. Police Services Board, of course, ongoing. A little bit of work preparing for AMO and some delegations that we have coming up there. Actually, Hanover has 1 delegation, but there are several others that I'm preparing for. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Councillor Hawking.
Thank you, Your Worship. On July the 20th, I too attended the open house. Done a nice job. On the 21st, I had 3 meetings that day: the economic development in the morning, the music in the square at noon hour, and the airport in the afternoon. On July the 22nd, April and I met with Emily from the launch pad to review the youth portion or youth pillar of our HIP program. On the 28th, I was invited to present the Young Entrepreneurial Award to Nicole Egetz. And just for your reminder, that is on August the 19th at the Drive-In Theater. It starts at 7:30. It opens at 7:30 and showtime is at 8:30. So if you want to go that evening, you can get your tickets at the Drive-In Theater. August the 4th, we had our cultural roundtable. And once more, I'd like to put a plug in for the general public and also to staff and council. This Sunday is our first Music in the Square. It begins at 2 o'clock. Al Crawford is the entertainer and got good weather. All we need now is a good audience. And the most important part, it's free. So come and join us. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. Toured the physiotherapy rehabilitation expansion. Nice to see that up and running. Also been volunteering at the vaccination hub. Attended Hanover Raceway Dream of Glory race day. It's always a great day, the Dream of Glory day. Helping out with the Hanover Roundtable Subcommittee with Councillor Hawking and Councillor Cable. Check out the dates on social media and your local paper. There's a lot of great entertainment. And I've been attending my committee meetings. So that's what I've been up to.
Thank you. Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Hanover Bentinck and Brant Agricultural Society held its second virtual fair this past weekend. The fair included Taste of the Fair kits again, which were a great success. A kids coloring contest, a car rally, which I attempted. It was pretty tricky. Horse pull. There's live entertainment on Saturday evening after the races. They also held a barbecue, which was a fantastic success, raising $650 that will be donated to Launchpad. And they also had family night at the drive-in. So the event was very well received and lots of volunteers that made that event a great success. I also attended the opening of the Hanover Physiotherapy expansion. Did a couple of days volunteering at the vaccination hub as it was winding down and helped out with some items related to music in the square. And I think we have our final planning meeting in a couple of days. So I look forward to seeing everybody out on August the 15th.
Okay, thank you. So I too also attended the open house for the Hanover Physiotherapy renovated building, and really pleased to see what they've done in there. It's an excellent facility. I also attended the Hanover racetrack with the women drivers races. That was really interesting to see. Many of the best female drivers in Ontario were racing, and they it shows you that gender does not define skill, strength, or ability. And what I really liked is that it showed young women and girls that competing is open to everyone. So I also attended the Chamber Awards presentation to bring greetings on behalf of council for the awards that will be shown at the drive-in. And I attended a Zoom Women in Leadership celebration. This was the first ever gathering that had female representation from every area of Canada. It was really interesting. I heard from the Assembly of First Nations, the National Chief, Roseanne Archibald. She was a guest speaker. And the Honorable Miriam Monsef, she is the Minister of Women and Children, Women and Gender Equality and Rural Economic Development. They both shared their experiences in leadership, and the takeaway was that we need to encourage young women and gender diverse people to run for positions of leadership. We need balanced representation. And I'd also like to say that I am so glad that Hanover has been so helpful in ending this pandemic with the hockey hub. I'm extremely proud of all our local and our regional volunteers. And I did receive these numbers from Sherry. There was 40 hub clinics 80+ parking volunteers, and over 1,900 parking volunteer hours. We don't have numbers for inside, but Melissa, our HR coordinator, was handling the volunteers. So we have those hours. So I felt pretty proud that we're part of this solution to end the pandemic. So it's pretty good for Hanover. Okay, staff, Brian.
All right, thank you, Worship. So I had the pleasure, along with Mayor Patterson, to sign the closing sale documents on 223 10th Street on July 30th. So that sale has been completed, and I'm sure Mr. Tedford will give everybody an update on the plans moving forward there. I also attended a startup meeting with Sherry Walden with Tatham Engineering, and that's regarding the trail bridges replacement. Also attended a meeting, and I'm working with Chris Walker on with CMR on tender documents for our insurance renewal. So that'll be released shortly. With respect to COVID, I attended a meeting hosted by Bruce County with Dr. Era regarding removal of the emergency declaration, and Dr. Era is recommending that in light of the Delta variant and the uncertainties that lay ahead, that the emergency order for the counties, as well as all lower tier municipalities, stay in place until at least December 31st of this year. Emergency control group meetings, of course, with the municipality, and as well as physician meetings regarding COVID. We've been working with the Rotary Club on a cigarette butt recycling program. So the Rotary Club is, their new slant is on environmental projects, and this is one that they wanted to partner with the municipality on. So we're going to get 10 cigarette containers that we'll be placing in strategic locations, primarily in our municipal facilities, and we'll be recovering cigarette butts. Rotary Club will pick them up and they can be recycled. From all reports, though, they can be recycled into plastic pellets for industrial use, and the tobacco can be composted. So that's a good thing. We've approved several return to play plans, everything from Music in the Square to an upcoming Boots and Brews to youth and adult recreational groups getting back into it. So it's good to see that happening as well. Just for council's information and the public's information, the Service Line Warranty Canada is in the process of a mail drop regarding their programs. And as council recalls, that program covers damage to water and sewer lines from the property line into your house. And so if you are talking to any residents, it's not a scam. It's I think it's the 4th year that we've municipality that they've been running this program in the municipality, and council supported this program initially. So you see our letterhead on the, or you see our logo on the letterhead, as well as the envelope. So again, it's not a scam. Last report, there are at least 80 residents that have subscribed to the program, and there has been some buyout or there has been some payout with respect to any some damage. So it is a program, and it is working for some residents. It's not for everybody, but it's certainly for those that can't get insurance for their older infrastructure. It's certainly an option. Of course, AMO next week, and we've been busy preparing a delegation brief. So we're excited about presenting that. With respect to council returning back to the chambers for meetings, there's a couple things on the go here. The first is to update the audio video equipment so that we can live stream those meetings. We anticipate that equipment could be installed in September, mid to late September at the latest. The issue moving forward, though, and moving into council chambers in September is the fact that currently it's a construction zone with respect to the, and this is with respect to the theater renovations. So they've had to reinforce the roof in order to support the rooftop units that are going to go in there. So it's, like I said, right now, it's all blocked off. It's a construction zone. And in talking to Chris Walker this morning, it's not likely we're going to be in there or be able to go in there until at least October. So I know council's been asking and is anxious to get that back in there, but in all reality, we're not going to get back in until at least October. And I think that's it.
So we have 2 more Zoom meetings?
At least, plus all the other ones in between.
Right, right.
Right.
Councillor Cable has a question.
Thank you, Worship. Brian, will there be any consideration for committees of council resuming in-person meetings before October? Committees that don't meet in the council chamber?
Where would they meet?
For example, Parks and Rec meets at the boardroom, the P&H Center, or.
Well, you know what? I think that's a discussion we need to have at the emergency control group table. Even when we go back into council chambers, I strongly recommend that we continue to follow safety protocols. So that means 6 feet apart, barricades, you know, hand washing, screening, all that other thing. So stuff. You know what? I think you know, if you can do it in a large enough room and follow those protocols, then I think maybe you know, we could resume in-person meetings. But that's really, you know, that's really, I think, only Parks and Rec, and well, I guess the Age Friendly and Heritage meet up at the P&H Center as well, right? But a lot of these other meetings we're in the Winkler room or in other small rooms, so I'm not sure how you're going to accommodate that. But if you don't mind, Your Worship, I'd really like to refer that back to the Emergency Control Group for a meeting and discussion in September.
Okay.
Thank you.
Input.
Thank you. Okay, Chris.
Thank you, Your Worship. We were finalizing the financial statements that were presented tonight. That's one thing that we're doing. And we now are working on completing the financial information return that the government requires after these financial statements are completed. So that'll be done by the end of August. Tax bills went out last Friday, August 6th, so everyone will get their bills in the mail. In case they ask you, when are the final bills? We've had many people calling, where are they? And the due date is the end of August 31st, and then the second due date is November 30th. As Brian mentioned, the council Winkler room will be out of order till approximately the end of September 30th because of the structural concerns and designs. And the theater renovations are also underway. There's major interior demo underway. If you ever had a chance to go into the theater, unless you have safety boots and a hard hat, you won't be able to get in there. But you can see exactly where the fire really took place in that older location in 1937, how it's really charred in the back area. So it's kind of interesting historical information there. And we are implementing a cybersecurity awareness training program, and all applicable users would have received an email from me earlier today, and all of council would have received that same email because we're all to get that training completed, because we want to make sure we're aware of the phishing, the spoofing, and any other email issues that are out there, because there's so many people out there trying to hack everybody on everything. So the better informed our staff is and our council members, the better our security will be. We are also working with the county GIS and our asset management software to try and merge our asset into the GIS so that you can actually see all our assets on a GIS map now, based on what our assets are inside our asset software. So that's going to be a large undertaking, and we hope to have it completed over the next year. So we'll be working closely with our county GIS people. And I also attended the physiotherapy opening celebration, and Brian already alluded to the CMR tender that's going to be out for insurance liability coming up. That's it.
Thank you. If it's worth it, could you take some photos of where the fire was from 1937, just for history?
Yes, I can check with Bruce. I know he's been taking shots before, during, and after. Now that the ceiling's open, the walls are open, you can see where all the windows would have been in the old location. And you can also see kind of where there might have been a balcony in the theater at one time when the roof was much higher. You can see holes in the walls where the big beams might have gone in. it's really interesting to see some of them.
Yes, for sure. Thank you. Okay, Chief Deniger. Oh,
Your worship. So I've been busy with joint health and safety reintegration plan reviews and municipal emergency control group meetings. We do have a new pickup in service. We actually ordered it in 2020, but just we're able to put it into service in the last couple of weeks just due to parts, and everything took much longer than we anticipated. It's got a little different look than our other trucks, so you'll see it driving around. It's used for fire prevention as well as our decontamination and a command unit. We had a successful junior firefighter camp last week with Fire Prevention Officer Rob Hagan and firefighter Christina Schnell. They had 9 children in the camp, and they had a graduation ceremony Friday, and everybody had a lot of fun, I think. Boat operations training is coming up August 17th and 18th. And recently on July 17th and 18th, we sent 11 personnel for testing at the Regional Training Center. And a number of those people tested for more than one certification, and everyone passed the practical activities, and we're just waiting to hear back on the written test results.
very good. Thank you. Okay, Dawn.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just I can report on, I guess my biggest thing for the last little while is architects. I just seem to be, they're wanting to talk about everything right now. The latest one was Friday. I got a revised plan for the 595 cannabis plant at First Street. They've come back to us with a totally different, like a civil drawing now to actually start working on it. So we should see a revised site plan pretty soon on the cannabis building down in the industrial park. We had another architect show up and talk to April and myself about the Byway store. They want to turn it into a small medical kind of boutique type of store where people can going to get a lot of different little medical types of services, healthcare services, that type of thing. The architect for 24th Ave and 14th Street has been working very hard with us, as well as the architect on 18th Avenue. We're also, Andrew's helping out a lot with Mr. Wilkin, our building inspector, with Chris and Benton Group with his project management skills. So it's working out really well there as a big help. There's the architect for the one that's going to get things really going pretty quick now is, as Brian mentioned, is 233 10th Street, which is the old Queen site. We should start seeing some drawings flowing through and what that building. I do have some revised schematics, what they look like. I'll forward them out to council tomorrow, and it's a 7-story building, still meets the requirements of the under 18 meters for building code requirements, and architects are getting very innovative with the code, and engineers and architects are working closer together. And anyways, that's what I wanted to comment on tonight. It's very busy with probably working with 10 different architects in the last month, all wanting to do something or plan something, which is very interesting.
Very good. Thank you. And Ron.
Kind of project update. The 15th Ave project's got some sodding to be completed there. That's scheduled for later this week, weather permitting on that, but hope to get that finished up right shortly. The other project which has commenced is 14th Avenue, 2nd Street A, I kind of call it that area. Pulverizing was completed early last week. Now we're actually waiting on utility locates before the contractor can proceed with any excavation work on that one. So it's kind of a little bit of a time delay on that one. it could be into next week before there would be a whole lot more activity on that one. And from our own maintenance crew, we're continuing on with the water main flushing. We're still working north of 10th Street. We're getting close to that area, and we're kind of working from north to south. So that's going to be carrying on for another probably upwards to a couple of weeks before we get all of that completed. And that's kind of the main areas in which we're seeing some activity around public works wise.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Ron. Councillor Cable.
Oh, just going to mention, Ron, that the fire hydrants look really nice. Your crew is out painting them the last few days, so they're very, very, very red at this point.
I can thank our student helpers for that. They've been, yeah, great, bearing down on it this summer. So yeah, very good. Nice to get the attention and get some notice of what's of the work we've been doing. Thank you.
Yep,
Right.
just don't cut your lawn too soon after they paint it. You're gonna get your clothes a little red.
And I can mention, Ron, that 15th Avenue, I've had some good comments about that reconstruction specifically to the sidewalk. I know it was in rough shape there and they're very pleased, some of the neighbors, and the sloped ramp to between the Hanover Heights and the Family Center to get little young ones across that street, you know, when they're going to school. So some good comments, always good to hear. So, all right, so that concludes our updates. Thanks, everyone. Item 14 is planning and other meetings. I'll just announce the Planning Advisory Committee meeting is Tuesday, September 14th at 5 p.m. All of these meetings and board committee meetings are on this agenda, and they will be on the website and in the minutes. So dates to remember and announcements. Labor Day is Monday, September 6th. The town office will be closed. The next committee of the whole meeting is Tuesday, September 7th at 7 p.m. And our next regular council meeting is Monday, September 20th at 7 p.m. At this time, I'll ask, are there any notices of motion? I don't see any. We do have a closed meeting this evening. It's recommended that the council of the town of Hanover meet in closed session in order to address personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. I need a mover and seconder to go into closed. Councillor Hawking and Councillor Cable, all in favor. Thank you. So we will just wait to make sure the correct